Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome back. It is Wednesday, my favorite day, because we get to visit with you and take you to one of these phenomenal places. And, the last few weeks, Charles was out visiting. So today we decided to talk about Italy. We're going to bring to you Italy, and maybe he's going to share with us some of the stories and some of the sites that he saw. But I know today we're going to dive into some of these markets because, now Italy as a real estate market, it's not a single thing. It's a collection of completely distinct worlds that happen to share a border. And the Puglia buyer and the Lake Como buyer are not the same person, right? And they're not looking for the same exact property. And so we're going to dive in today and we're going to talk about that. And some of the properties that we have on Airdomo, we're going to call out attention to as well, because we've got some unique and rare offerings that we want to make sure that we bring to your attention. So Charles, bring to us some of this amazing thing that you saw and sites you drove through and all the greatness.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a phenomenal trip with our children, and the first time being significantly out of the country, and we got to experience family and those unique discoveries that make travel and adventure so amazing. And it was also a valuable lens on what's really happening in Italy in terms of the property markets there. As we know, historically, Italy has been relatively undervalued in Western Europe, but I think that's changing fairly rapidly now. The golden visa landscape, which has shifted in the last couple of years as places like Portugal have tightened, Spain has been a little bit more restrictive in some areas. Italy has remained relatively comparably welcoming compared to those markets. And so it's become a little bit more of a smart alternative for the European residency through investment program. There's the flat tax regime, which is where non-domiciled residents pay a fixed €100,000 per year tax on foreign income, regardless of the amount. So obviously that's highly attractive for your high net worth buyers with global income. There's a 7% flat tax in the southern municipalities under 20,000 residents, so the southern smaller towns. That's targeting areas in Puglia, as you said, and also Calabria and Sardinia. And that is a very underutilized tax structure that I think that more and more buyers might be able to leverage as they come to understand it better. Remote work, still a huge trend. Golden visa is still a huge trend. And these have structurally kind of changed the demand in Italy. Buyers are definitely younger than they once were. They're staying longer periods of time throughout the year rather than just popping in for vacation. They really might stay seasonally or beyond. And they're really thinking, I think, about lifestyle architecture. I met a lot of folks in some of the various places, Umbria, Tuscany, and down further south, that had committed to the lifestyle. Really, they were here. They were there from elsewhere in Europe. They were there from the U.S. or from Canada, and they weren't there just for a season or a month. They were building a life there, and they weren't necessarily retirees either. They could have the whole family there and be just planning on becoming essentially Italian. So today we're going to look at two really different expressions of how Italy is bought and lived in. There's the historical rural South, and then there's the cosmopolitan Northern Lakes.
Yeah. And that region one, that Puglia, the soul of the South, I think is what they call it, right? Because I think it's the most misunderstood region in Italy from the buyer's perspective. People hear Puglia and they think it's an emerging market. It's a rough gem still being discovered. But there's some truth to that. But then there's also a better way to think about it. And that is that Puglia has 3,000-year-old architectural tradition, a food culture that Michelin has been paying attention to for more than a decade. So if you're a foodie, that's the place you want to go. And it's also got this remarkable coastline that competes with anything in the Mediterranean. And so what it hasn't had until recently is the infrastructure of discovery, the international airports, the branded hotels, the design studios moving in, and now it does. So it's been put on the map. And the two property types that define the Puglia markets are the Trullo and the Masseria. The Trullo, those extraordinary roofed stone dwellings that we see in pictures, right? And it's that protected architectural form found almost nowhere else on earth but in that area of Italy. And then you've got that masseria, which is fortified farmhouse look, the working estate that has been reinvented as some of the most sophisticated living in Europe. And Erdomo has remarkable contemporary lake take on both of those. Charles, tell us more about those.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to have a development partner in Italy called Sterasa, they craft really extraordinary custom turnkey homes that are deeply attuned to the region and the history and the styles, and they are informed heavily by that sort of architectural legacy that you mentioned. So, for example, in Puglia, in Martina Franca, Il Trullo, there's a residence they've developed that has those really distinctive conical roofs, and it's those very striking materials, and that's something that you can, enjoy the extraordinary expression of that authentic style, but also customize, make your own, have highly modernized, and have a really best of both worlds. And that's available starting at around 1.4 USD. The Masseria style, they have another opportunity over in Ostuni. Ostuni is an iconic white hilltop city. This is set nearby, and from there you have access to the coast at Villanova and at Torre San Leonardo. So it's a versatile location, but it's really built on that historic farmhouse style with a wonderful unity between the home itself and the courtyards and the pergola and the surrounding landscape. So it's a big space, a big structure, but used in such a way that the space feels very organic and extraordinarily sort of natural to the area. So well worth checking out both of those on the Erdomo site. But broadly, in the investment context for Puglia, as we said, it qualifies for that 7% flat tax on foreign income, which is a major draw for non-EU retirees and remote workers. Martina Franca and Ostuni are two internationally recognized towns. They have both seen a lot of price appreciation since 2020 or so, and I think will continue to see that. And our partners, Sterasa, have really got the right model for welcoming international buyers with a contemporary design that is built around your lifestyle and your desires, but also just conforms and fits perfectly in the landscape and really takes advantage of that duality. So comparable properties in Tuscany and Umbria, other popular places, run considerably more, pound for pound, for probably 40 to 60% more for equivalent finishes and equivalent sizes. So Puglia is the value play here compared to those perhaps more conventionally visited markets or bought-in markets. And short-term rental demand has grown. It hasn't historically been the play to have the short-term to buy and do short-term rentals there, but that's definitely gaining ground. So it's something to watch for sure.
Absolutely. And what I find compelling about Puglia specifically and the Sterasa collection is that they've solved the problem that most international buyers face in the Italian rural market, right? How do you buy something genuinely historic and genuinely beautiful without inheriting a renovation project that takes 5 years and costs twice what you expected to renovate, right? No, Sterasa is building these. They're turnkey. The architecture is rooted in place, but the product is contemporary, brand new, and complete. And that's a rare thing to find in this market. And the other thing that I love about them too is that they even fully furnish this. And so you, as an international buyer, building a new home with Sterasa, don't even have to worry about how am I going to decorate? How am I going to get furniture there? Because they handle all of that. So it's amazing. But now let's go north a little bit, because the Northern Lakes are completely different proposition, different buyer. It's a different lifestyle than what we just covered. And it's a different investment thesis. Lake Como and Lake Garda are not just beautiful, but they're genuinely one of the most coveted addresses in Europe. You have the Alps as a backdrop, a Mediterranean microclimate that allows lemon groves and the olive trees, right, at the same latitude as Zurich. and a historic tradition of European aristocracy and industry and culture that has made Lakeshore one of the most consistently desirable places to own property in. So these markets are attracting that buyer that typically has a connection to Milan or Zurich. Maybe they're that global executive who wants a European base that is, they want a base that's beautiful and genuinely practical. The lakes are 2 hours from Milan. They're accessible from most major European cities direct, and they offer something you cannot find in many other luxury markets, which is 4 distinct seasons. So they do have fall, winter, spring, and summer, and they have serious natural beauty and real privacy. Charles, let's look at what we have there on Airdomo with the lake.
So our partners at Strasa have also found the magic of those areas and built a couple of really extraordinary properties. One of which is called La Pietra. It's on the Lombardy side of the Bellagio and Varenna zone, and this is probably more understated character based around the stone traditions of the pre-Alpine sort of lake era. This is, I think, really defined by the detail. This is an extraordinary property, architectural quality. Just you could see it throughout. Well worth checking out on the Airdomo site. And another one that's on Lake Garda on the western shore is called La Terrazza, and this one I think is most special for. You mentioned the 4 seasons. That really plays out on those lake views. It's a very, very dramatically different sort of environment and vista that you can take in all year round. And this property is designed very specifically to absorb that and reflect that and let you just sort of revel in that change of light, change of season throughout the year. But as you said, Lake Como, very, very different from Puglia, kind of a tale of 2 cities, but that's what the Italian sort of model is. Every area has its own character and its own definition. Lake Como, of course, has always been a very elite address and thus has held historically better value than almost any other Italian market. And the prime lakeshore properties really almost never see a significant correction. They're always desirable. They're probably always going to be desirable. Lake Garda is the largest lake in Italy and the most visited in Europe. So there's a huge, of course, tourism demand underpinning the value, not just your personal value, desire to be there, but investment value, rental value, potential short or long-term rental value. That's all sort of guaranteed in that area. Western shore of Lake Garda, as we mentioned with La Terrazza, it specifically benefits from a really unique microclimate that is technically Mediterranean, despite being so far north. It's got olive oil production and lemon groves and palm trees at 45 degrees north. So it's a very kind of a remarkable anomaly up there that you get the best of both worlds. So that's, of course, highly desirable. As you said, Milan, financial and fashion capital of Italy, that's a huge driver of the buyers for that market. Zurich as well. Swiss buyers are a big driver because of the accessibility. But this is a known entity, one that you really can't go wrong in. And if that's if that sort of cosmopolitan access, but old world style is your thing, there's really no other place that you can find it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about the lakes, you've said it, I've said it, it's the seasonality that, people who truly enjoy the seasons love these areas. And the buyers who do best in this market are not the ones trying to squeeze a rental yield out of it year round. They're the ones who understand that a Lake Como property in spring and autumn, when the crowds are gone and the light is extraordinary, is one of the finest places in the world to spend time, for themselves. That's the value proposition, not the numbers. Through the numbers, they're solid in some of the other seasons, but it's the quality of life per dollar spent relative to the comparable addresses in Switzerland or in the south of France. So I know you've got a bonus market for us.
I thought we could just throw one more in because we could talk every week for a year about Italy and never exhaust the subject. But
Yeah.
one more that I think is an interesting contrast to the ones we've mentioned, Sardinia. And I also mentioned it because our Domo happens to have several really unique and extraordinary properties there worth checking out. Northeast Sardinia, around the Costa Smeralda, is the most consistently valuable coastal real estate in Europe. We have for example, 5-bedroom Capo Coda Cavallo Villa with direct beach access for about 7 million USD. This is beachfront pool, panoramic sea views. You'll be hard pressed to find anything like it anywhere. So worth checking out on the site. Sardinia is definitely a different buyer though. Someone who wants a genuinely private coastal experience, not a managed resort product, not the farmhouse, not that sort of thing. This is a unique play. You want to have your own space, you want to have that privacy, and you want to have an address that really nobody else can compare to. The island has got benefits from great air connections, a lot of the local community, the food, of course, the culture is, like in many places in Italy, so unique and special that it continues to drive that lifestyle for that area as well. So I think Sardinia on its own is worth an episode, but that just touches the surface. And but taking a broader look, taking a step back, who is Italy really right for, right? Who is this the right play for? There's several different sort of buyer archetypes that I think we could point to, and that I saw personally on display when I traveled through there a couple of weeks ago. Number one, the lifestyle architect wants a genuinely beautiful home in a place with 3,000 years of food and culture and design and architecture and history. Both of the regions we talked about today deliver that in spades. Puglia and Como both have those very different, unique characteristics, but they both certainly offer that. So for an entry for that buyer might be like a 930K USD property at La Via Carovino, which you can see on the Airdomo site. Another buyer type would be the tax optimizer. That's someone who's going to take advantage of that 7% flat tax for the southern regions and the 100K euro flat tax for some of the other areas. This works in Puglia. This works in the lakes. So that's an appealing option for that type of buyer. The third buyer, and I think this is probably one of the most largest sort of cohorts, is the European base builder who wants proximity to Milan, they want proximity to Zurich, and they want to have easy access European business travel, but also have a very genuine and satisfying weekend and summer life in some of these areas we've mentioned. So both Lake Como and Lake Garda, we see that significantly, but also elsewhere. And as travel and flights and other opportunities continue to grow, that those potential areas expand accordingly. Lastly, we have, and this is another big one. These are the folks that are buying up the sort of agroturismo type properties and the farmhouse type properties. This is the rural heritage buyer who really wants an architectural form that feels like it belongs to the land. It feels like it belongs to the history. It has that just aura about it that you can't manufacture it, right? You have to go find the one that's right for you. So that's an extraordinary. There's a lot of avenues for finding that throughout Italy, but especially in the areas we mentioned. So those are some of the primary archetypes, but there's a lot of different reasons to love it, and there's a lot of different folks that are taking advantage right now.
Absolutely. And so, to bring all of this together, tons of information, we could do so many episodes on Italy. But if you're thinking about Italy, think about it in regions, not in the country as a whole, because every region has its own identity. Puglia gives you that architectural uniqueness, the 7% flat tax. That is huge, you all. I mean, when I think about, taxes and what we go through here, and, that is a great opportunity. And a market that is still a meaningful discount to Tuscany for, comparable quality. And then Il Trulio at 1.4 million US dollars. that is amazing, especially for a brand new home that you can have a real entry point into that market for. There's a lot of homes over there that we've seen throughout the years that start you at that price, and they might need $2 to $3 million worth of renovation. And then you've got to figure out, how do you even renovate those properties, right? Mm-hmm. Because you got to find the contractors and the builders and so forth. Our partners at Starasa bring something that is completely unique when it comes down to it. And then the Northern Lakes, it gives you 4 seasons of lifestyle. Its proximity to Milan and Switzerland. It's got a track record of holding value that is almost unmatched in European real estate. At Lake Como and Lake Garda, both Starasas come in at under 1.7 million as a starting point for those homes. And that's for an address that people pay multiples of that to just cross the border into Switzerland. So all properties are on Airdomo now. Links in the description. And if you want to talk through any of these regions that fit your goals, we're happy to book a concierge call and have that conversation. That conversation is free, and it's fun for us to do because this is what we enjoy doing. And it's going to save you months and months and months of research. So as always, thank you for joining us. Thank you for spending your Wednesday with us. And Charles, I think next week we're going to bring them some great information on Panama, which I'm excited about.
Absolutely. We've got a lot to talk about in Panama. Very exciting. And so we'll pick it up then.
All right. See you all.
Bye, y'all.